Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd. Uh, this is day two of week 15 of Hotel and Evening and Weekend Platoon. And today we're going to start our class with our friends from Accenture. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that name right. We have a bunch of people from Accenture that's going to talk about a whole plethora of things, along with, I can see here, Angel, nice to see you, bud.
Do you?
Some of our star alumni that now work at Accenture. And of course, Catherine from Career Services is also here. So I'm just actually going to hand it over to Madison and then you can take it away.
Oh, I was gonna let Catherine start because
Oh,
normally
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry,
I couldn't.
Catherine. I didn't know who was starting.
I know my Wi-Fi was totally slow and I could not get in. I was getting kicked off. So I apologize. We are so thrilled to have Accenture here. Three representatives that I can see who will be kicking off our resume coaching matching um, whole rest of your cohort. You're going to be working with your resume coach. Um, we've got Paul, and everyone will introduce themselves, but he is one of our founding board members. He works at Accenture. He got all these great people together. This is our like 13th cohort doing Accenture resume matching. Well, it's our 10th. If when we have Avenger, that's the 10th immersive, and we've done at least three of these evening weekends. So
Wow.
did that quick math in my head.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I won't waste any more time. I'll hand it over to Madison and Chris because they are really spearheading this. And I know Paul will talk too. And it's good to see you, Angel. So take it away. We're so thrilled to have you guys. Thank you.
yeah, thank you guys so much for hosting us. Chris, if you can share screen.
All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
We would do intros, but I think the intros are going to be baked into this presentation, so we'll just we'll allow that each slide per person during the intros. This is what we're calling the student kickoff for the resume coaching piece of your Code Platoon course curriculum. And we have a Accenture piece here today. We are Accenture Military. We are representing the Accenture Military ERG, Employee Resource Group. So it's like a little club within Accenture. We have per per city region, but also national. So we are the Military Employee Resource Group, and within that ERG, we create a Code Platoon resume coaches. We have some today. We'll talk about who we are. We'll talk about we'll share some alumni stories from I think two at least prior Code Platoon students tonight. We'll then go into the resume coaching piece, giving a program overview of what we're going to provide over the next few months. The resume building, building a resume itself, what the purpose is, structure and content within a solid resume, kind of highlighted there in yellow and orange. Is the biggest challenge probably with a resume with this group is going to be translating military experience from a military jargon, military familiarity to the private side if necessary. We'll also share some tools and templates, and we'll finish with some Q&A. So this is the agenda of what we're going to discuss today. Next hour or so. The Accenture Military ERG, Employee Resource Group. Who are we? So this is kind of the around the horn of who is on the call. Paul, can I kick it over to you here for a first intro?
Sure. Man, I really need to update this slide. Hey everybody, it's good to see everyone here. My name is Paul Knutson. I am a technology consulting manager at Accenture. I've been with Accenture for about 7 years. I'm not going to read the slide to you. I just came to say you guys can see the slide there, but some fun stuff. A lot of familiar faces here, and I know this is a really small group, and so I think we're kind of coming in hot with a bunch of folks to support you guys. But I think the piece I want to talk as an intro for myself is, like was mentioned earlier. I've been involved with Code Platoon since its foundation. Rod and I go back to like 2013. This is a real passion project of mine. In fact, I've been associated with Code Platoon longer than I've been associated with Accenture, and I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to bring Code Platoon into the Accenture family and really wrap around support from multiple areas. That being said, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the merge slide, but just to close out my intro. So I've got 30 years of military service behind me and another year and a half in front of me. I'm a glutton for punishment. That's true. I got 15 years as enlisted, and then I commissioned back in '09, and I'm currently an intelligence officer in the Army Reserve. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' success over the years. So with that, I'll kick it back to Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Madison, you're on the seat here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Madison. I've been at Accenture for about 3 years, and I got involved in the MERG because my husband was enlisted in the Marine Corps. He recently got out and now works at Lockheed. So if anybody wants a connection to hear what it's like there, he specifically is doing stuff in cybersecurity. But in terms of my experience at Accenture, I've mostly done stuff in the AI space. And I have been leading coordination of the MERG's resume coach volunteers for also like 2.5 years now. It's like 7 cohorts or something. It's crazy. But yeah, so I'll be managing the chat. If you guys have any questions as Chris goes through and presents the material, I don't know. You can also read the rest of my slide. Yeah, that's about me. Oh, also, I previously lived in DC, recently moved to Dallas. So also, if anybody who's from the DC or Dallas area, talk about that. Yeah, thanks. All right.
Did you add boba, Madison? Looks like maybe you were on the boba train before, but boba was even a
Oh,
thing.
I was, dude. In high school, I had a friend who was obsessed with it. I could talk. There are so many, like, I have opinions about all the chains and like what makes good boba and like boba restaurant menus. Yes, there's like 15 places within like a 10-minute radius of me, and 2 of them are walking. So yeah, I have a boba problem, but we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, interesting. I might use that example when it comes to resumes here. So
Okay,
it's
okay,
definitely an attention grabber. So
okay.
thanks, Madison. I don't know if we have Michael. Michael, you on?
Hey, Chris, I'm on.
Hey, Michael. Any you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hey, y'all, I'm Mike or Michael. I'm out of Atlanta originally and based out of Atlanta office. I am, let me see, did 7 years service, medically discharged. Um, after that, I went into work with a specialized unit for local Atlanta Police Department. Basically, my job was Big Brother, so it was Cyber Visual Integration Center. That was fun. A lot of fun things to get to experience and see behind the scenes. After that, I started going to a coding academy also. So, in a similar sense of what y'all are going through and what y'all are doing. So, I definitely understand. I've been with Accenture for just past my 4-year mark. After the coding academy, I was actually recruited into the into the apprenticeship program with Accenture, and I mean I've loved it ever since. It's been a journey, learned a lot, and I've been with Code Platoon since I want to say 2022, 23. Done 3, maybe 4 experiences where I've had or where I've had coaching experience with resumes and stuff like that. So definitely here if y'all to reach out if y'all ever need anything. So
Awesome. Appreciate it, Mike.
yeah.
Chris Lotto here. I live in the Philadelphia area, outside Philly, Westchester, PA. I was 10 years active duty Air Force, and now I've been 10 years Accenture. So I'm right around the 50-50 split here. I enjoy getting outside as much as I can. And like I said, I've been with Accenture 10 years. With my military time, I was a navigator, a C-130 navigator at Davis Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, largely from 05 to 15, deployed 5 times. And now within Accenture, I've been with the 5 or 6 major clients in 10 years, kind of almost like in the military, how you PCS every 3 years or so. within Accenture, I've kind of been, so to say, PCSing maybe every 2 years between major clients. So some parallels there. So nice to meet you, and I'll be driving most of the content here today. When I say driving most of the content, this might be one of the slides where I don't drive. Paul, you want to add some color to this?
Yeah, for sure. So listen, I'll be real brief here, and just to kind of pick up where we left off, on the intros about the military ERG. So all of us in some form or fashion are members of the military ERG just by virtue of our affiliation to the military. And that being said, the military ERG as a whole is focused on a lot of different things, right? From figuring out how to build partnerships with our clients, doing networking and different types of events. For instance, we've got a military appreciation night at Wrigley Field coming up here in the beginning of August. So putting together fun things for our crew. Skill enhancement program, like we want to share best practices and help elevate our performance of our people, and so we group together and help out there. You can see the outreach and engagement, and I'm going to come right back to that because this is a part of it. And then admin, we run a program, right, nationally, and there's like about 5,000 employees that work at Accenture who are military affiliated, so it's a huge component across the country. But part of our focus on outreach and engagement is doing these types of activities, right? And focusing on putting together programming that enables our people to volunteer and to provide support, or to do fundraising activities, right? Or to do, like in this case, helping to recruit talent into Accenture. And we do all three of those things. The military ERG does all three of those things supporting Co-Platoon. We focus on putting together volunteer opportunities for our people in the form of resume coaching. From a fundraising, we've done individual donations, we've done grants, and we've even done a pro bono project. And some of you might have heard about it, who are like, because it's been ongoing this last couple of months, working to build a learning management system for Co-Platoon. And then recruiting, like we're building a pipeline for folks to come in. So you're going to hear from, a couple of folks here, some buddies of mine, who are going to share their stories about how they went through this program, at Co-Platoon, their experiences with the volunteer resume coaching, their experiences with recruiting and joining Accenture, and kind of tying it all together, because then we get into, the deep content about what the program is on the resume coaching program and building a resume. But the reason we start with this is because there's a whole community of people who rally around you all, in particular, in order to support your success. And so it's an honor and a privilege to have this opportunity to do it. And I always put out the plug, like if you guys want to reach out, hit me up on LinkedIn, send me a request. I do my very best to engage. I'll set up a call. I'll spend 30 minutes and happy to talk with you, about life, liberty, and the pursuit of better employment. So, with that, go ahead. Let's go to the next slide. And I think I'm going to hand it off to the guys who are going to talk about their experiences.
I saw Angel join. I think.
I'm here.
George is here too. What's
George,
up,
want to go? George, want to go first?
Yeah.
And then I think you got a bigger time crunch.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is George. I was in the Marine Corps from 2002, 2007. Did 2 deployments. Graduated from Co-Platoon in April of 2020. And then I joined Accenture the same year in November. So I'm going on almost 5 years now as Accenture. My journey started as an apprentice. So for a whole year, I was an apprentice, working with Verizon, actually. After we got feedback, they decided to bring me on full time. So I was with Verizon for a total of almost 4 years. And now I am at Cox Communication here in Atlanta, where I'm currently at. So I've been with them for about 6 months now. My journey through Co-Platoon was good. I think it was good. Just dealing with resume coaches, they were very very hands-on with my experience. with my resume coach, we sat down and went, pretty much line for line what should be included, what should be included. Um, and then through the whole hiring process, if I can give some pointers, is probably just to keep an Excel sheet. That's what I did. It's once you graduate, it is a little bit difficult just going through the grind of applying for jobs and going through interviews, coding tests, stuff like that. Um, but I felt it was a little bit more organized, just having everything in an Excel sheet, having points of contacts, emails, when you applied, if they replied to you or not. That kind of puts everything in perspective and puts everything, nice and neat. So you can see, oh, I should follow up with this company. I should follow up with this company. So small things like that. Other things is try to minimize any military abbreviations in your resume. I know we know those like the back of our hand, but in the civilian world, they really don't. So I would try to avoid those and just break it down to a more simpler resume in your military experience. Have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like Paul said, I try to do the best that I can to reply to everyone. Yeah, Chris.
Awesome. So that Excel track, is that like an Excel tracker basically when you were looking for jobs and you're networking? So it's kind of just like a tracker, what of like networking opportunities or actual jobs you applied to, or
Both.
what were some categories within that Excel tracker?
Yeah, so for my tracker, like let's say I networked with someone, like I had Paul on my list when I graduated.
Good one.
I put
Start.
his name, his LinkedIn, his contact email, stuff like that. And then like last time I reached out to him. And then for the actual job tracker, the company name, the recruiter or person of contact for that company, the day I applied, the day I heard something back, or if I heard something back. And with that, I can see like, all right, this company, haven't heard from them in a week or something. Let me follow up with the email. So that makes everything more organized for myself.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
And I know you got a drop here for
A hot fix in production.
I was gonna.
Are you really an engineer if you don't fix things in production?
No, I appreciate it. Fire drill, I'm sure. Angel, you on?
Yes. Can you hear me good?
You mind giving us a background of your co-platoon experience, specifically around kind of resumes and resume coaching?
Oh yeah, so I went through Platoon about 2 years ago, and when I was doing the resume portion and trying to look for a job, I know that people dedicate a lot of time in general just to the curriculum of Code Platoon. They wake up, code, they go to sleep, wake up, repeat. It's every day. It's like seven days a week.
Hmm.
But I remember I was actually trying to like meet other people. Like, don't underestimate networking because your resume probably looks like another person's resume. So do whatever you can to stand out and meet people. I knew I went through a few tech meetups, solved some problems and stood out a little bit and I just went around, shook everyone's hand. Hi, my name is Angel. Get out of your shell. I know I'm an introvert and I don't like just going up to somebody random. Hi, how are you? But you kind of have to get aggressive with it a little bit, make yourself stand out. And then when you submit your resume, you probably know a few people at that company, hopefully. When it comes to the actual resume, I know that I had to, as George said, how to translate certain things from military to civilian. For example, if you won, like for me, I had Sailor of the Year, but instead of doing that, put Employee of the Year. It's the same thing. And a resume, whoever's screening, a recruiter is going to look at it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, Employee of the Year, that's pretty good. And if let a few people put you were in charge of this unit or in charge of these people. For me, I was a hospital corpsman. I was in charge of a certain department. I wasn't just a regular employee. No, I was given the responsibility to do this. So um, definitely spend time iterating over the resume. I had like three resumes, like a rough draft, look kind of, slapped together. The second one looked a little better. And then the third one with my resume coach, he definitely knew how to critique it. Okay, definitely highlight this, do this, and then you'll just have to send it out. no, especially your first job, it may be the toughest one to get, with no experience, but that definitely goes back to the networking. That's what you're probably going to have to do.
Angel,
you.
where did you find those tech meetups?
Meetup.com. I know I think that's where I searched first. And then I think in Slack some people put like, oh, there's this tech meetup, because I think Coplatoon has a, like every group, every group has a Slack channel. And there's a career channel as well. Maybe look in there as well, because I know the career channel is really important too. They're always posting stuff in the career channel.
I'll just note you guys aren't in the career channel yet, career services channel yet, because you haven't graduated, but you will be. Don't worry.
Hey, any other input from the prior students? I know it's pretty inspiring and motivating for me. I'm ready to run through a brick wall here. Great two success stories, and I really appreciate you guys telling the story here. So, anything else for these two folks before they drop? Awesome, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. So now we've talked about who we are here at Accenture, given two examples of Co-Platoon prior students. This next section now is really around the resume coaching nuts and bolts itself. This is the hotel evening and weekends overview with the timeline. There's really going to be 3 drafts of resumes due: draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. Or I should say 3 drafts due to your coach, with a final draft due to the instructor. So the dates are written there: August 1st, August 29th, September 19th, and then the final due 10/3, just prior to your graduation. So the purpose of the volunteer resume coaches, the Accenture resume coaches one-to-one, is to support the career journey of the students. So again, we want to the students provide a draft, and the coaches provide review of those drafts over the 6 weeks. So you are all going to be students here. So on the right side of this middle section here, you're going to draft your resumes and share with your coaches on time. Your coaches will be available, and we do ask that the students be proactive in communicating with your resume coach. This, is kind of hopefully practice for being proactive when it comes to networking, and being proactive when it comes to applying for jobs and following up with jobs. So, again, as a student, kind of look at this as a way to communicate with a potential hiring individual, or at the very least, a professional network that can help connect you with a potential role in the future. So again, the key word here, and the key word here for students is proactive. Proactively communicate with your coach. Proactively communicate with your career staff if you're running into any issues. And also keep in mind, you want to be respectful at all times too, right? Be respectful of your coach. Your coach is volunteering their time. Come to these meetings prepared and on time. When we say come to the meeting prepared, that means have either a fresh version of the resume ready to be reviewed, or in the case of drafts 2 and 3, the feedback incorporated from that coach. So this is kind of high level of what to expect here over the next few months. Any questions here? Again, it's kind of a small crowd, I believe. I think is there still 5 hotel evening weekend students? So definitely feel free to chime in with any questions. Definitely want to make this interactive. But now we're double clicking into the purpose of a resume. I'm expecting all different levels of experience when it comes to resumes. So, I'm going to try to kind of start from the bottom, start from the basics, and double click into more detailed. So the purpose of a resume is to introduce yourself. Okay. You want to introduce yourself to employers. You want to present your qualifications, and the ultimate goal of a resume, theoretically, is to secure an interview. So it's kind of like opening that door of an interview. You might think of it as a first hoop to jump through when you're applying for that job. It's that first wicket, that first, first interaction, not face to face, but it's a, first interaction to secure that interview. You want to give your potential employers a feel for your past experience and skills. Again, a resume kind of incorporates what you've done in the past and skills that you can bring to the potential role or job. So you're trying to sell yourself. Okay, the idea of a resume, of course, is to emphasize your strengths. You're not trying to, highlight any non-strengths or weaknesses, so to say, but you want to really emphasize your strengths. Also, when looking at a resume, kind of think about, hey, are you looking in the rearview mirror or are you looking forward outside the windshield of your vehicle, right? Is it the rearview mirror or the windshield? So it's less about what you've done in the past and more about like taking what you've done in the past and springboarding it to what you can do in the future. So it's why you would be a great fit for a future job that you're applying to. So you take lessons learned that you've done in the past and apply them and roll them forward and tailor them to a future fit. Make sense of what a resume is? How do we structure this? How do we structure a resume? So I've been a resume coach for a couple cohorts here. In my most recent one, I got the draft one, from a student, and the content was right on point. The content was 10 out of 10. But the thing was, when I looked at it, it didn't quite look like a resume. You know, there's something to be said for when you have something in your hand or when something flashes on your screen, is this truly a resume? And so, may I ask here, the group, when you look at this example on the right, even without looking necessarily on the left, what are some giveaways that this is a resume that you're looking at? What jumps out in the first glance, your first 5 second look at this example of a resume on the right?
Skills, relevant experience in projects, leaders, the headers.
Exactly. Yeah. The format, right? Yes. It's a small example here. I'm not even talking about the content, but really just the format, right? I'm taking a look at this resume. What do I see? I see this guy's name, John Smith. Okay. I see an email. That's going to be awesome. If I want to get back as a potential hire, as a potential employer, I know how to get back to this person. I can also see, a quick paragraph of this individual's summary. Okay. Hey, that makes sense. If I want to jump here, I can. If I'm looking for a couple of specific skills, I know my eyes can jump right to this section, right? If I'm looking to kind of paint a picture of this individual, John Smith, okay, I'm looking at this. Hey, maybe for 6 months he did something. For 2 years he did something else. For another, year and a half or so, he was Army, got it. And then for 3 years he was, an engineer. Okay, so it's like okay, Texas, South Carolina, and this individual's been around. I can tell, right? So my next glance, as I'm looking at this calendar here of his leadership and involvement, I can see, a couple key words jumping out and education, AWS certification, BA. So again, when you're looking at a resume, it's like, hey, what does your eye hit first? That's kind of the formatting. Anybody else think? Does anybody else want to mention what their eyes go to first when they look at a resume? Okay. So why do we want a standard format? At least a general, it doesn't need to be too cookie cutter, but at least a standardized format. The reason for it is it optimized for an applicant tracking systems. So these employers might be using a tracking system that's automated and a standard format with keywords will help optimize and help you in that, I don't want to say algorithm, but within their system. Think about if a hiring manager may only look at a resume for 7 seconds. If I look at a resume for 7 seconds, when I look at this, what jumps out at me? Army veteran. I see the word coffee here, which may or may not help, right? I'm like, oh, I love coffee. I see top secret clearance. I'm looking at these calendars, right? I'm seeing about 3 years worth of relevant experience. I'm seeing about 4 or 5 years of leadership involvement. I'm seeing a couple, multiple certifications and education here, with the year. So again, if I'm looking at this for 7 seconds, I'm looking at location. I'm like, okay, hey, maybe I've been at Charleston. Maybe I can talk to this individual about his time in the Army in Charleston. I saw Fort Lejeune. right? I saw Austin, Texas. Hey, I might be able to make a connection with the individual based on location. So, and then a manager may only have 7 seconds. Keep that in mind. Avoid templates with pre-formatting, so you don't want to be too cookie cutter. You don't want tables or images. Largely, the recommendation here is 1 page. You can go to 2 pages. Maybe if you have 10 years plus of experience, it might take a second page to incorporate, double-digit years of experience. Here's the standard margins. Yeah, go ahead.
Art has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, would you tailor a resume based on the audience, based on the employer, meaning that if certain skills are going to be more relevant to this particular employee, would you maybe just kind of like maybe raise that to the top, or would you just kind of just send out your resume as is because it's kind of already set up? Basically, like, are you tailoring your resume to each employer, or just is it left as is?
Mm-hmm. Awesome question. And it's also subjective, right? There is no right or wrong answer. I would say, in my scenario, right, if I am departing the military, 10 years ago, I was departing the Air Force, and I was applying to jobs. I kind of had a couple different versions. Yeah, I did tailor because I was thinking maybe I go into consulting, and I maybe applied to 1 or 2 consulting jobs. I thought maybe I was going to go into nonprofit space, right, or teaching, right? If it, and so that of course is going to be a whole different, maybe 75% different of a resume look and feel. Or maybe I was going to do. I'm trying to even think what I was trying to do. Maybe going to the Guard Reserve. So it really depends. If you're trying to apply to 3 consulting firms, maybe 1 resume fits because those are so similar. Okay, but if you're trying to go into teaching or or consulting or law school, those are going to be 3 pretty significantly different resumes, don't you think?
Yes.
So you might want to have in the hip pocket, you might want to have in the hip pocket that tailored, slightly tailored. The other thing you mentioned is those keywords, right? There is maybe a little trick to where if you're applying to your dream job and you have a maybe it's with I don't even know, the NFL or something, or Google, right? Where it's like, okay, and you have a job description, and you maybe circle 5 or 6 keywords in that job description, and make sure those 5 or 6 keywords in the job description are in your resume, because this tracking system might be looking for certain keywords. What keywords are they probably going to look for? Probably some of the same keywords that were in the job description or itself. So I definitely think it's worth tailoring. I definitely think it's worth tailoring a resume for a specific job, especially if it's super important to you. It's like your dream job. If you're applying to 150 jobs a day, you're not gonna have 150 different versions, right? So you kind of got to use common sense. But does that answer your question?
It does, yes. And I think I'd also like to add that if you could do a little bit of research and find out who you might be interviewing with or who the hiring manager is, and kind of figure out what, based on his, say, LinkedIn page, what's important to him, you
Mm-hmm.
might be able to guide your resume as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Each situation is different. When I'm thinking a resume, I'm thinking maybe less about tailoring it to a person, right? That might be the next level. Maybe that's interview prep, where if I'm going to go interview with an individual person, I might look them up on LinkedIn and try to figure out, some of their, maybe some of their clues or,
Commonality share.
What, Catherine?
I said the commonalities you might share.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Commonalities, exactly. Commonalities for sure, like locations or previous employers and stuff. So, okay, let me continue through this content. Definitely, I really appreciate the back and forth. Definitely, don't feel free to keep chiming in. Really appreciate it. The other thing too, when you look at this, what jumps out? Hey, how about the bold, the consistency, right? I'm seeing like, Okay, capital letters, capital letters, capital letters, bold with this line, right? So leverage that bold, leverage the italics, all caps, spacing, right? White space. Gosh, when I was in the Air Force, writing OPRs and EPRs, the white space was felt like it took up a majority of my day. How do you fill the white space? What we mean by white space is kind of where my mouse is. As you can see here, there's room for maybe 3 or 4 more words in this line to come all the way to the edge. There's room here for 3 or 4, for 10 more words to add a lot of more meat and potatoes to this particular line. Reducing that white space can really add a lot of oomph to a resume. You can kind of keep it on one page and really jam pack it with specifics, numbers, dollars, impact. Pipes are your friend. As you can see, pipes here, right? Role, pipe, organization, pipe, location, right? These pipes are look real clean, differentiating between spots. Consistency. The other thing too is this is super consistent, right? It tells a cohesive story. If I'm looking at this, I'm like, engineer for 2 years, BA for a year and a half. Ooh, security forces. And then he kind of maybe did a little bit of a pivot into security forces for 2 years. And then back to tech for a web application within this organization of Code Platoon for a 6-month program or whatever. So again, you kind of want that story to be cohesive and not necessarily kind of bouncing around and where it's a puzzle to where the reader has to kind of put this puzzle together. You kind of want to make it a full puzzle for them. Spacing, bullet size, font size, verb tense. As you can see here, managed, drove, orchestrated, crafted, realigned, established, designed. Oh my gosh, all these powerful verbs are the first born out of lockdown. Look at this. All the first words are strong action verbs. And so that is very, very strong. And that's what we're going for. That's the goal. Anything else? Any other lessons learned here from anybody else on the call? Structure and content, personal info. As you can see here, kind of pretty self-explanatory. Name, role, phone, LinkedIn, GitHub, city, state, blah, blah. Profile. This is like a 3-line, maybe 2 sentences, giving a profile of who you are and what you're seeking, right? This is your objective. This is really what you want to bring to the very top. We then go to 3 is relevant experience and projects. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you kind of want this to be pretty cohesive and tell your story. If it's kind of like bouncing around all over the place, to where like, hey, you were a camp counselor, then you were like a computer science engineer, and then you were worked in the food industry, and then went back to like, if you're bouncing around too much, you kind of got to find a way to kind of make that a little more cohesive and a little more of a story. So that's experience and projects. Education here may vary very widely of how much time and effort you want to spend on education. This might be a little bit light for this individual, right? University of Houston, BA in Psych, minor in data science. If I'm looking at this, I, as a interviewer or a reader, a hirer potentially, this may whet my appetite and maybe not quite enough information, right? That could be good, right? This might be just enough info to pique my interest. Oh, University of Houston Psych. Hey, why is a psych major minoring in data science? That's really an interesting combo. That might pique my interest. Or on the flip side, maybe this is a little bit light. Maybe you can thin out some of your relevant work experience. For example, this bad boy here is only 2 or 3 months worth. I'm eating up 4 lines for a 6-month of my life, whereas maybe 4 or 5 years of my life was at University of Houston and only got 1 sentence here. So it might be kind of light. So my feedback on this, just generally speaking, I would consider maybe shifting some of meat and potatoes from relevant experience and maybe beefing up just a touch education. But that's just at first glance. Experience, 4 education, 5 skills. Now this I think is actually pretty, I think this is quite strong, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 solid lines of really detailed, technical, specific skills that an interviewer or a reader, an employer can ask follow-up questions if they need to or want to on this. But this is really gives a lot of meat, I believe, in my opinion, is within the skill section. Did anything I say there resonate with the audience?
I have a couple comments.
Sure.
So skills definitely we want up top because that's where the recruiter is looking. You mentioned 7 seconds. They really want to see those right up top. They don't want to have to hunt for them at the bottom. They are going to be found throughout your experience. You're going to highlight those skills again. It's not redundant because they're keywords. And so the ATS is almost looking for those keywords. And if Django or Python or JavaScript and one of those tech skills is what they're looking for, you want to hit that up as many times as necessary. You might want to even bold them. And so that's why we recommend with this template that the skills go up at top and it's kind of consolidating for the recruiter or the reader. And then they're going to see it fleshed out below. So the projects, yes, you might have only been a co-platoon for 3 months or 6 months, but those projects are your hands-on experience. And so if you haven't had real hands-on experience as a software engineer yet, that's your gateway to show that you've done it. And usually you put your hyperlink your project, whether it's on a website or GitHub or your portfolio, whatever you've created. And then education, unless you're straight out of school and they're looking for, an internship or an apprenticeship that requires you have just had graduated, we don't want the education up top and we don't spend too much time on it. We're really giving just the basics because you really don't have much space on that page to highlight everything. So giving all the relevant experience and kind of going over the metrics. So it's not describing what you did at your job. It's not your responsibilities per se. It's what you accomplished and the metrics. And so really highlighting some of those things that you've done in your job that can either point to the tech that you've just used. Obviously, a lot of you are pivoting into tech. This is the first time. Actually, I don't know any of you yet because you're evening weekend and I haven't come in. So maybe you're not. Maybe you're actually have already been in tech for a while and you're just getting some new skills and languages. But most likely you are going to be highlighting those things rather than your education. That was my only pushback to that, Chris.
Sure. Hey, no, definitely fair. I'm
trying to think of any other real highlights on this, Madison, or anyone else have any pushback? Do all of you have a resume right now? Okay, so Adam says no, because Adam, I believe you're younger, and you haven't had to create one, correct? Okay.
Which is completely fine, to be clear. That's part of why we're doing this. And
for Adam, Code Platoon might be all you can talk about on your resume right now, right? Or whatever job you've had in the past. You might not have a formal education. You might not have a formal job prior to this. So yeah, we're gonna build on all the skills that you're learning in Code Platoon and emphasize those, and then the projects that you're gonna complete by the end of this course. Your group project and your individual project, that's where you're gonna really highlight what you know.
And in the interest of time, we've already covered some of the points that will be on the subsequent slides in these, but we do have a slide double clicking on each of these. And for any points we aren't able to voice over actually on the slides, Catherine will send this out as like a post read to you all, so you can read through it more deeply later if we have to go through the rest of this deeply. Yeah, Chris, keep going.
Okay, awesome. It looks like I got slightly ahead of myself, a little bit too eager here, a little bit too eager. So yeah, personal info here, as you can read. Hopefully, no surprises to what is included in the personal info. I like the hyperlink suggestions, a recommendation. Profile, sometimes called a summary. Succinct, keep it short, pack that baby with keywords. Experience, a lot of meat and potatoes here. Organized by most to least recent. Each experience should have 5. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The one keyword, one word that I think, Catherine, you were on the track of, but I don't know that you said it exactly, is right here. Impact. So it's really what she was saying. I think Catherine, you were saying, hey, what have you done? Yes, it's what about what you've done, but also what was the impact of what you've done? So action, content, impact. This is really the tough part, and this is where you really have to kind of think about it and spend a majority of your time. But the bigger impact you can kind of describe here, the stronger your resume is going to be. No longer than 2 rides.
Hey, one thing I want to add on that in the experience piece, and I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'll just say, think about impact in terms of quantitative versus qualitative, right? So quantitative impact, you're going to talk about like percentage improvement or hitting some sort of key performance indicator. Whereas a qualitative impact would be something like, earned employee of the year, right? And there's a qualitative impact there, or something that is more descriptive versus something that can actually be measured. So think about that when you're writing your impact statements on the things that you've done. If you can quantify something, it's powerful. Numbers are powerful, but so can qualitative impact is also powerful when crafted in a way that it demonstrates value added.
Awesome. One thing too I learned here is this last bullet here. End with periods to help with applicant tracking systems. So as you can see here, there are periods after each and every line, and I didn't know that, but maybe it does help with the applicant tracking system behind the scenes. Experience translating military jargon. This is tricky. Demilitarize your document, right? It's kind of difficult to hear maybe, but military language, this doesn't mean focus less on your military. This means like make it less the military language itself. So language can seem foreign or maybe even intimidating to non-military personnel. So you definitely want to avoid acronyms, convert rank, and convert any sort of service branches or jargon, even across services, right? I was Air Force. When I'm with a prior Marine Corps, or I guess there's also prior Marine Corps, right? Once a Marine. But if I'm with a Marine, those acronyms are completely different, right? It's a whole different language for across service. So imagine even leaving the military in general over to the private sector or civilian sector, how different those acronyms can be. And don't get it twisted. There's definitely plenty of acronyms on the other side of the fence. They're just different. So so get ready for that. Give a list of full picture of experience, service member software, military experience. So here's maybe some examples of how you can demilitarize. Military experience to market to civilian employers. So think about parallels. So if you're working, each and every military activity can be kind of translated in a parallel of a civilian side. Networking hardware, databases, what you do with analytics. Okay, so think about those functional areas of expertise or core competencies, which can translate from in uniform to out of uniform. You want to highlight technical skills, highlight interpersonal skills, highlight your leadership skills. This is really what's going to kind of set you apart from a majority of the other applicants. Highlight these. Showcase communication skills. Uniforms and weapons. So this is just kind of like the translation, right? Instead of using the term soldiers or sailors, as was an example, you can use the word staff or employees or coworkers. Instead of uniforms or weapons, hopefully we would more generalize that to supplies. Barracks or other buildings, those on the other side of the fence would be considered facilities. I'm not going to go through all these because I'm looking at the clock here. But these are a lot of good examples. NCBN non-commissioned officer course. Again, what you could rename these on your resume. You would rename it by this example. Staff college, you could rename it this. You could rename it here. Again, these are just little tips and tricks. Instead of TDY, business travel. Instead of reconnaissance, data collection. Platoon sergeant, team leader. Warrant officer, technical manager. Right? These are all like there's a little what do they call them, the SATs, where it's like blank colon blank. It's like I forget what they're called. But anyway, yeah, thank you. So these are examples. Maybe take a screenshot of this. Translating military jargon. Education. I'm not going to bleed this out. I think Catherine gave a good example of how education can fit in, especially with this audience here.
The main thing that I would highlight on this slide is if you don't have a degree, it's totally okay. My husband does not have a degree and he has a full-time job now out of the military. So your coach can help you work through ways to present education on your resume, including your code platoon experience, even if you don't have an official degree. And even if you have some social time in college, you can still go ahead and put that if you think it would be beneficial to you. And you can also include other courses you've done. So if you did a couple online courses, like there's edX and Coursera and Udemy, those are also things that you can list on your resume. And you can also sign up for or participate in those courses for the sole purpose of being able to put the title of the course on your resume. If the title of the course has some keywords that you've seen in job descriptions would help you to have on your resume, but you don't have for whatever reason, you can take courses to be able to add those keywords as well. Sorry, Chris, you can keep going.
No, great point. I also do some other resume coaching for another nonprofit called Tech Impact, and that's for students prior high school grads, but not college grads. So I've definitely seen dozens of really strong resumes without necessarily college degrees per se. They can be really strong. So definitely appreciate you chiming in there, Madison. Skills, again, as Catherine mentioned, let's bubble this to the top, especially with this audience. This is really going to be where you're going to hang your hat. A lot of these skills are going to be just what folks are looking for. Cram this with keywords, highly tailored. Tools and templates. Again, I'm going to share this deck out next day or two. This is going to have hyperlinks for a veterans employment and training service from the DoD. This has a skills translator, resume builder, interest profiler. Again, a lot of good info within this link here of the Veterans Employment and Training Service. Department of Veteran Affairs, they have similar type of tools. And then lastly is resumeengine.org, an organization called Hiring Our Heroes. Also another tool to be leveraged as you're doing your research. Here is a template for code platoon resume template. Here's a generic resume for multiple roles.
And that's the end. So thank you guys.
And that brings us back to the end, definitely. We have a few minutes for Q&A. So let's hear. Anything coming to anybody's mind?
And let me just say that I will be sending an email. It'll have the presentation, but it'll also have links to your resume coach. So as soon as you get your resume coach link, we'd highly advise you to reach out to your resume coach. Don't include your first draft of your resume because it could get spammed out. So just send them a regular email. Hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm from Code Platoon. You are my coach, whatever it is. Be respectful of their time and thank them for their time. Try and set up a meeting with them. They're all virtual unless I tried to match you as best I could by location, but not everybody is going to be in your location at all. It's more by time zone. And even if that didn't work, then it was by your areas of interest that you put on that form. And if you didn't fill it out at all, then I just winged it. So, but they're all really great volunteers. If you do have any issues with them, please come to me. I will then go to Chris or Madison and we'll work out what the issue is. If there's a timing issue, this is summer, obviously people have vacations, so be respectful of their time. Again, thank them, give them opportunity to, a couple different times to meet out with you. remember, this isn't just about your resume draft. This is about networking as well. So Accenture is a huge company, as you have learned. They're a great consulting firm. They work with lots of other companies. So these people are connected to hiring managers per se. And they also have a lot of great apprenticeship opportunities. So keep that all in mind while you are doing this. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you're like, yeah, I'll reach out to them in 2 weeks, that's not good. They'll start reaching out to us and say, hey, we never heard from our student. And then I'll get on you and you'll say, sorry, I've been so busy. I do all this stuff. I'll listen to you and then I'll prod you again. So please try and be motivated. Art, you have a question.
Question and a comment. I think it was very helpful for me to speak with, or to at least hear from some ex Code Platoon graduates and to see their path. However, I would like to speak with somebody who went into the self-employment path, just to kind of contrast those, to see what the options are, and see if that person thought that was a good idea, or maybe they regret that self-employment path. That would be interesting, maybe to include in a future presentation. And the other question I has was, will there be any assistance with maybe optimizing our LinkedIn or our GitHub profiles?
Yeah, for the first point, that is great feedback. We don't currently have that as part of our curriculum/presentation, as you saw. But that's a great point. I don't think that's something that we've discussed before. Your coach may, I don't know exactly who you're met with, but your coach may have that experience in their background, or at the very least, they would be able to help you identify people on LinkedIn, so that you can reach out to some of those people as part of your networking and hear about that experience that way. On the point of optimizing your LinkedIn, so the thing that we tell the coaches is that they have to commit 3 hours to working with you, and you and your coach can break that up however you want. So if it's 3 1-hour meetings, if it's weekly, or I guess because you guys are more spread out, but it's like every other week, something for 30 minutes. And as part of that, some people move faster than others. So if your resume is really close on your first or second draft, then the meeting where you would typically discuss your third draft, you can also spend some of that time talking about your LinkedIn or other topics. But it just depends on how the first couple meetings with you and your student go, because we don't want to rush the resume part. So I don't want to guarantee LinkedIn discussions, but that is something most of the coaches are comfortable and happy to speak to if you have the time.
And
Right.
I'll just say that is something we totally cover in career services. So when you graduate, we will be looking at your LinkedIn. We will also go over your resume, because one thing I didn't hear today, which we always forget to say, is you ask someone what a resume should look like, and you're going to get 30 different answers. So you're going to start doing all this with your resume coach, and then you're going to start working with Rich and myself at career services, and we're going to be like, oh, where'd you get this information? So you're going to hear a lot of different advice from a lot of different people, and you're going to pare it down and decide what works best for you. And you're going to try some A and B testing and figure out, this resume didn't get any hits. What's wrong with it? Oh, I had a photo on it. Okay, no, that's not going to work. You're going to realize there's certain parts that are just pretty standard, and formatting to get through the ATS is one thing, but content is something else. So take all of this with a grain of salt. Use your volunteer to the best of their ability and your ability to connect, and make the most of it.
Thank you.
But yeah, that was the short answer of saying, when you graduate in October, then you'll be coming to us and we will go over all of this ad nauseum again and again until you get a job or until you're satisfied. So, and then to answer the self-employment, yes, we can put you in touch with people who've gone that route, Art. In the interest of time, we should thank Madison and Chris and Paul and Michael, sorry, for your time. We totally appreciate it. I will be sending out that email with the resume coaches. If you have any questions, please just Slack me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And we'll send it back to Guillermo, because I know you guys have only 3 hours left of tonight and you've got a lot to learn. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Madison. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bro.
Thank you, everyone.
See you, team.
All right, everyone. I'm actually going to pause the recording here. All right, everyone. That was our resume coaches for Accenture. Accenture, I think I'm pronouncing it right. And just a slight correction from the beginning of this video. It's not week 15, day 2, it's week 16. So sorry about that. Today, we're going to continue with neural networks and our LLM lesson. Today is Intro to Torch Tensors. In the grand scheme of things, can anyone give me a really simple definition of what LLMs are? Or neural networks? Sometimes they're used interchangeably, honestly.
Like machine learning?
Yeah, but they're ultimately what? What kind of models they are?
Search engines, basically.
No, they're better than that.
Are they more or less just large data sets that's based off of
Large data sets that can do what?
large data sets that can, I would say, analyze and process data based off of, I don't know, analyze and process data based off of I guess an algorithm that helps them helps them categorize and put things together.
I actually have never used Grok, so I'm going to use it here for the first time. Okay. Let's do, oh no, I hope it doesn't say something offensive. I think Joe would say something about that. All right, let's look. What is a tensor as it applies to LLMs? Something that we're learning. Yes? Cool. Let's see what it comes up with. All right, cool. Give us all this. When I asked this question, right, what did it do? This is kind of like what I'm asking for is kind of a gross oversimplification of how it works. But this is actually an important thing that I want to make clear before we move on any further.
When you asked that question, it basically did a background of all the data that it could find relating to that question that you asked, and then it compiled somewhat of an answer based off of that data.
Yes.
Response based off that data.
When I type in, go ahead, Art.
I hate to break your flow. That's why I put my hand up, man. But
no, go ahead.
Do you think that these LLMs save questions? So, like, if there's a similar question asked, that they're not redoing the work over again?
No. All LLMs, at least good ones, are non-deterministic. That means you're going to get a different answer every time you ask it. Great question, though. Right? When I type in, what is a tensor flow or a tensor as it, whatever, can the LLM actually understand that question? Like you and I can understand it.
Yes, it'll take what it can understand, and it'll probably.
Oh, you're kind of walking around it, Cisco. I need a clearer definition. Can it understand this? Like you and I can understand it.
No, it can't.
Okay, so what is it doing then, Cisco?
It's making a guess.
It is. That's exactly what it's doing. It's giving you a statistical answer based on the tokenization of the characters that you punched in as an input. All right, so this is super misleading, right? So I'm gonna teach this the way that I know how. And you're gonna see a lot of my own biases in today's lesson, right? Because it's one of my pet peeves when I would argue that the majority of people think that LLMs can actually think. They can't.
Right.
They're a statistical model based on your input. And people that ask similar questions to what you just asked, right, is going to point to the most probable answer based on the weights of the person that trained the LLM and adjusted it and what they call fine-tuned it. This is arguably the most important thing you have to understand about LLMs at this moment in time. They're just statistical models. Questions about that? If it's a good one, it's going to give you that like the most probabilistic answer based on the question that you asked. Right? Yes? What affects the answer that you get? Right? All the tokens that you put in, all the characters, right? All the parameters that you give, right? And all the data that that model has been trained on. That's going to determine what it spits out, right? I think there was a weird one a while ago. I think this is ChatGPT, but since I have Grok pulled up, it was weird. It was like, how many? You guys remember this? You guys remember this? How many R's is there in strawberry? I think this is. You guys remember this from ChatGPT? You guys remember that? At
No.
first, when the older models, it couldn't figure out it was 3.
Mm,
This one clearly catches it, right?
yeah.
But in some of the older models, maybe a year ago, right, it wasn't able to answer that question. Why is that? Because it can't actually read strawberry like you and I can,
Right.
right? And I think there's a weird one where like show me an image of a left-handed person, please. Yes, I'm over 18. I don't know how long this is going to take. What's wrong with this image?
They're right-handed.
Why is that, Cisco?
Well, you could, because they're right. The camera is facing the front of the person.
No, that dude is writing right-handed anyway. It has nothing to do with the picture.
Oh, well, it's just obvious he's right-handed. Yes. And
Yeah, but that's
yes,
not what I asked. So
yeah,
why
you
did it
asked
give me this image?
because it doesn't know the difference from left to right.
Why not?
It's too broad of a question for it.
No, it's not broad. It's pretty specific. Show me an image of a left-handed person. It should be able to read that. Why can it not get this right?
It can't critically think.
Well,
Oh,
it
it
can't
can't-
think, but give me kind of a cleaner answer. We've already
can't-
established it can't think.
It can't see as well.
I can't see as well. We're gonna get into that later.
Yeah.
But this has to do with the training data that has been trained on. What's the issue here?
I don't know.
It hasn't been trained on enough left-handed writers or left-handed people. Why is that?
Not as many left-handed people as right-handed people.
You nailed it, Nicole.
Let's see.
Can't do it. There's enough. It doesn't know how to recognize that. Doesn't know how to create that. There isn't enough data on it. Right? So when you run into problems that are one of one at your job, and you will run into tons of them, right? It's not going to be able to help you.
Mhm.
There isn't enough data on it. How is it going to be trained on enough data on your internal code base when your problem is one of one? You need a hero, right, on GitHub that commented how to solve your problem. and hope that yours is somewhat close and you can get there.
Mm.
That's happened to me on several occasions. Or you'll have an internal wiki, right, where you can search common problems within your code base, and then there'll be heroes that post answers, like an internal Stack Overflow. If you work at a big company, they'll have that. At AWS, it's called internal search and Sage. And you'll have that. And they'll ask you how to get bailed out on internal tools that no one else has but your company. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And even in your own internal company, even like a big company like Amazon, right? Even its internal LLMs, that's not enough data to come up with good LLMs that can bail you out. Even on its own training data set where it has access to everything. Go ahead, Art.
Do you know, at least on the free versions, these LLMs were 2 years behind. Do you know if that's still the case?
I think the good ones are 1 year behind, but they're always going to be behind, right? That's another thing that you have to understand. I think I've already mentioned it in this class, but they're always going to be behind. Why?
Because they have to put the data together in order for it to, function properly.
And then train the LMLs and then release the product, right?
Right.
That puts you 1 year behind, which doesn't help you when the internet grows ever more unwieldy by the second. Do you know how often the Amazon web page updates? Does anyone know this? I'm using this example because I happen to work there, right? But there's an update push to Amazon.com every 15 seconds. Man, that's pretty recent.
Yeah, it is.
If you get at that scale, at the 2 trillion, and everybody wants to be that scale because it means a lot of money, right? A lot of quote unquote shareholder value, right? Going to be tough with LLMs, right? When I need updates pushed every 15 seconds. But think about this. That's a really big company, right? Take a smaller company. Even pushed every day is ridiculous. It means LLMs never get there. Turnaround time is way, and by orders of magnitude, too small. Does everything that I'm explaining make sense? Now,
Yeah.
you both heroes and myself, if you agree or disagree, I don't know, right? We are in the minority. I'm sure you've already figured that out. Yes? People that actually believe the way that I'm teaching you are in the minority. If you talk to anybody that doesn't understand tech or people that think they understand tech, they think AGI is coming. They're legitimately worried. That is not a problem for the 21st century. That might not even be a problem for the 22nd century. Right? After that, I don't know. I'll be long gone. All of us will be. That's their problem, not ours. Yes? All right. Those are just some silly examples that hopefully prove my point there. Okay, back into intro of torch tensors. This is going to be a pretty relatively short lesson, and I'll try to make it as simple as possible. All right, in neural networks, nodes or neurons process inputs to produce outputs, right? Based on a single input, broadly speaking, based on an input, an LLM neural network is going to spit out an output based on what? We just discussed it.
Data.
Yeah, data it was trained on. Simple?
Yeah.
All right. So lesson content, what is a tensor? A tensor is a generalization of vectors and matrices to potentially higher dimensions. So what is a tensor? It's just a what? You can read this little thing if this helps you. I don't think this is particularly easy to understand, but in its most simple term, what's a tensor?
Tensor is like it could be a dictionary list or,
Not a dictionary, but
a map or list.
not a map, but a list, right?
Yeah.
Technically, a tensor is just a simple multi-dimensional array, right? A single number by itself is just a scalar, right? People talk about a 1D tensor. But that's just a list, right? If I was to do, let me scroll all the way down, right? When you talk about just a single number, right? This would be just a scalar, right? Something like a 1. But when you start going into something like this, right? This is known as a vector. Oh, or a tensor. They're synonyms. Tensor. I always thought of them as vectors, but yeah, that's what they are. I mean, technically, if you want to get really technical, to me, this is not even a tensor. This is just a vector. But once you get into something like this is actually what a tensor is, right? It's a multi-dimensional array. And this represents what? In neural networks, this represents what? Something like this would represent what? Information. Right? Here, the 2 means something. The 3 means something. The 5 means something. And the 6 means something. Right? It's a numerical interpretation or conversion of data. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So when I go to like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, right? And I do, what is a tensor? Right? And the minute I hit send, this information is being converted to what?
A list.
Yeah. I mean, this is a gross oversimplification, but it's most simplest terms. And this is definitely not right because I don't know the inner workings of the models, nor am I a machine learning engineer or anything, right? But this is roughly what it's doing. And this tokenization is representative of whatever characters you punched in your input, right? And it's going to take a mathematical representation of what you punched in, and it's going to spit out, right? Its most likely statistical answer. Make sense? Again, gross oversimplification of what's happening, but roughly that's what's happening. Go ahead, Art.
How is this different than putting that what is a tensor question into a Google search?
How is this different?
Yeah, meaning that like here we're talking about mathematical representations. Is that what's happening also when we enter something into Google?
No. Google, so let me try not to say anything that's wrong here. Google is just a keyword search, right? Based on crawlers and algorithms that Google has developed. That's obviously proprietary to Google, right? This is a statistical model. They're very different.
And is this mathematical model, is it supposed to be more precise? Is that why, I mean, is that the key difference, precision?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. They're just different.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just different ways of doing something and probably different use cases.
Okay.
Because again, gross oversimplification, Google search does keyword and it's SEO, right? And their own internal algorithms are that internal, right? They don't publish those, so no one can build a search engine as good as they can, right? So that's what they do, right? This is a statistical model based on the tokenization of your words. This is very different, the way that they go about it, right? Google's algorithm is actually incredibly efficient at keyword searches, right? This is using a lot more compute, right? So is it more efficient? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think so, right? Because this is burning a ton of cash. And to even build these LLMs, right? You've already burned a bunch. Right, where keyword searches and Google's algorithm, right, takes probably, I would guess, orders of magnitude less energy. And one could question, oh, which was more useful for me? Well, I guess it really just depends on your use case. That's kind of like a cop-out answer for a lot of software engineering. Well, it depends on your use case. That is the right answer, then. I hope that helps, Art. I don't have a better answer for that.
No, that's helpful. You know, it's like I have some like just basic questions just to help me kind of understand, because you know, when the little bit of research I've done into LLMs, they're talking about these like very intense mathematical equations. I'm thinking, what is going on that we need these intense equations? It seems like Google's doing a great job, and it's very similar. But however, you know, just to share a little bit of information, I've been using AI every day to help study for an exam, and it's actually, the system seems to be learning about me. It will actually cross-reference previous questions that I asked it and say, hey, look, you made the mistake on this particular question, and it looks like you're duplicating that mistake. This is what you're doing. And I know Google can't do that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's trained to do, right?
Yeah.
And in theory, right, the more data, the more good data, right, the better the statistical outputs are going to be, right? In theory. Not necessarily always the case. Sometimes I'm sure, we've already covered in this class hallucination. Sometimes it will just make stuff up, which is not cool, right? Alrighty. So what is, we already talked about tensors. This is just an example of a 3x3 matrix. This code snippet just generates a 3x3 matrix filled with random float values using Python's random module. However, working with multi-dimensional lists in Python for mathematical operations, and this is really important here, like addition, subtraction, and multiplication, can be cumbersome and inefficient. Think about just creating a list like this, or having to manually build a list of lists from like a CSV file and utilizing strictly Python to, let's say, add them together or multiply them together, right? If you had, right, to multiply two lists of lists together, you would have nested loops, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's not very efficient, right? That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of compute, right? So enter, right, tensors. All right, so problem with pure Python for multi-dimensional arrays. This kind of just goes into with the problem of like nested loops using just normal Python, right? So back to tensors. A tensor is like I was saying earlier, a tensor is a multi-dimensional array that provides a more efficient way to handle such operations. So instead of using just pure Python to multiply, right, these nested arrays or these matrices, you're going to use tensors. So tensors and PyTorch are similar to NumPy. Is anyone familiar with NumPy?
Yeah.
It's just a what, Cisco?
Package. A
Yep.
program package.
Yeah. It's just a program package or a library, right? This helped to use that is used for intensive calculations, right? When you're trying to program something. All right, so similar to NumPy arrays, but with additional capabilities for GPU acceleration and automatic differentiation. It just means what? It just means, hey, we're a lot more efficient in running computations, right, than your standard just Python code, right? So here's an example, creating a tensor in PyTorch, right, and adding it together, right? You import the library torch, right? You create this. What are you creating here?
You're creating a multi-dimensional list.
Yes. Yes. And then you're doing what here?
And then you're adding them together.
Then you're adding them together, so then you're going to print the result, right? And the whole premise of tensors is to make what easier?
That process.
What
The whole
process?
uh, just adding multi-dimensional lists together, or doing any
That's
kind
it.
of operation on a multi-dimensional list.
There you go. And they give you the example of just addition because that's simple to understand, right? Hey, let's add a couple of multi-dimensional lists together, or multi-dimensional matrices together, right? How would you do it? You can do it using pure Python, right? But that would involve nested loops, right? Or you could import these special made libraries or packages that are optimized for such calculations, right? So when given those two choices, what are you going to do? You're going to choose the optimized packages, right? So this is the only thing that it's saying, right? So using PyTorch tensors, the same element-wise addition is much simpler and more readable, right? I could have easily done this exact same thing with nested loops, right? Just saying, hey, just import the library that does all the heavy lifting for you. Do a simple tensor 1 plus tensor 2, print the result, right?
Yep.
Now it's giving you the example of a simple addition, right? And it's going to give you simple, here in a second, I think it gives you like listing out all the numbers and a couple other things, right? Basic arithmetic. It's teaching you this because ultimately this is going to lead to what complexity?
In complexity, n times complexity.
Kind of, yeah. How do these like black box LLMs work under the hood, right? By doing incredibly advanced statistical calculations, right? On the inputs being passed to the LLMs, right? So if you can start with just simple addition, right? Eventually you can fill in the blanks to a place where you can connect all these dots, right? And it spits out an output, right? Based on what you passed in.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about the nitty gritty, right? Because honestly, I don't even know the nitty gritty, right? Just have a general understanding of how they work. Yes, that will be good enough for right now. If ultimately you end up specializing in this, you're going to know a lot more about this. But right now, it's just really important to understand it conceptually. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And not be one of those people that thinks that LLMs can actually think. And actually believe that, Grok can actually read Strawberry like you and I can read Strawberry. Right?
Yeah.
If you're there already, you're better off than most, unfortunately.
Hey, it's great for
Or
building games.
fortunate.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great for building games too.
Yes, absolutely. All right,
Adam.
so using PyTorch tensor, you see how the element addition is simpler and a lot more readable. I think that they're forgetting a lot more optimized too. No need for nested loops. So the addition operation is performed directly using tensors without the need for nested loops. We already talked about that. All right, so the importance of tensors in neural networks. In neural networks, tensors represent inputs, outputs, weights, and biases. For instance, an input layer of a neural network can be represented as a tensor where each element corresponds to a feature in the input data. Tensors enable efficient computation, forward and backward passes during training, making them a fundamental building block in deep learning. In layman's terms, what is this saying?
It's basically just able to read and access different parts of the data more efficiently, by referring to different elements within the list.
Yes. Right. Actually, this is actually a famous, really classic. Let me pull it up. It was the Kagan, right? Yeah. It's a Kagan Titanic, maybe? Yeah. Is it this? Yep, this is it. I actually dropped this in the, this is actually not an assignment, but very cool. If you ever get a chance to do this, I'll drop this in the questions. I don't know why I got rid of it. I'll put it back there and I'll put it in the questions.
Titanic tutorial.
This is kind of the classic like intro to machine learning exercise that you can tackle if you would like. What this does is we all heard of the Titanic, right?
Right.
Some people died in the Titanic, right? Some people survived. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this takes a giant data set of people that were in the Titanic. I think they were real. I mean, the people obviously in the Titanic were real, but I think the actual like death to survivor ratio is correct. So this will take all that data, right, and turn it into vectors or matrices, for example, right? Again, I'm going to just give a broad overview of what that does, right? Where it will give you a giant matrix of matrix where whether a specific why am I blanking on this word? A person on the Titanic was male or female. That actually affected their survivability rate. So let's say the person was male. Male means one.
Okay.
Right? And female means two. Right? How old were they? Right? Maybe there's a range. Right? 15 to 20 is one. Right? 21 to 25 is two. Right? Let's say 25, and this is representative of a two. 25. Because what also had an impact on them living or dying was how old they were. Right. So this too is representative of a second age range. Right. And then let's do class. Let's do 1 equals lower class. Right. And 2 equals upper class. Where the line is, who cares? Right. And this has a whole list of people, right, that are represented by what? Every single one of these little vectors or lists represents a what?
It represents looks like their gender, age.
This represents a person, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Represents a person, male, right? What age group, what class, right? And you have a bunch of these people, right? Whose data is quantified to represent a piece in this giant matrix, right? And then you train your LLM, you clean the data, you train your LLM model, and you try to predict with as much accuracy as possible who lived and who lived and who died in the Titanic accident, right? Based on the data that you were given and the LLM that you trained. That's what that exercise does. And that in the nutshell is what we're trying to get to. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what LLMs are trying to do under the hood. Right? Just the Titanic example with pretty much anything that you can ask them. Make sense?
Yeah.
Although I have heard, and I haven't actually kind of messed around with this, with some of the agentic stuff, I heard some of those models can actually reach out to the internet and like grab data in real time. I don't know if that's true. That's what I heard someone say. That could be hearsay. Has anyone heard about that happening or no? Maybe someone just lied to me.
Yeah. Well, we just kind of talked about that earlier, that, they like most of the AI engines aren't able to access real-time data from the internet, right?
Oh, okay. That's just what I've heard. That'd be
nice.
kind of like that'd be dope. It's kind of like what Art was saying. It's like, well, how is this different from Google? Now, if that could kind of like mesh with a Google search, that would be more useful, right? Because you get a little bit of the best of both worlds a little bit, right? So again, I don't know. That was just something that I heard. Anyway, back to this, the importance of tensors or neural networks. So neural networks, tensors represent inputs and outputs and weights and biases, right? I give you this very simple example, right? But it's very possible that when you're training your specific LLM or an LLM that was trained, it's very possible that being a male is weighted twice as heavily as the income class or the age group. Because maybe males are just a lot stronger, so they could endure freezing temperatures longer. I don't know. I'm making this up, right?
Yeah.
But it's very possible whoever's fine-tuning this LLM, right? They're playing with those weights and those numbers and those biases. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Numerical representation, right, of the data to include different weights and biases. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, that'd be a great idea for making a lottery a lottery number picker, right?
For sure.
How many times has a number been called up in the history of, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I'll see if I can pull up something. Someone did a math on a pick 3 or pick 4, and they statistically calculated that if they bought 1,100 tickets, right, it would be positive equity to buy the 1,100 tickets if no one ended up winning, like getting the 4 or 5 numbers right, and he ended up making a couple million after a couple attempts. Eventually, he was banned from playing the lottery. I'll see if I can find the article and I'll post it in the question. But I think at the time, I don't think there was ChatGPT available, so he just did it by hand. But
Yeah.
I mean, with ChatGPT, if you had insight into that, you could just have it do it and say, hey, is this viable or not? Anyway, all right. So back to this. In neural networks, tensors represent inputs, outputs, weights, and biases. For instance, an input layer of a neural network can be represented as a tensor where each element corresponds to a feature of the input data. I give you the really I give you the example of like, hey, 1 could represent a male and 2 could represent a female, right? And I gave you the example, like I just made up age ranges. I think if I remember the Titanic example, I think age ranges is one of them, right? Where obviously like an 85-year-old is not going to have as much strength as a 23-year-old, right?
Right.
So the chances of them surviving are less likely. So your model should be fine-tuned to understand that, right? Right, you're just not as strong. It's pretty simple. Right, but an LLM doesn't know that. You need to weight it accordingly, right?
Right.
Okay, so tensors enable efficient computation. I already talked about that. So tensor manipulation. So here it's just going to go over manipulating these matrices, right? This will give you changing shape of a tensor with this tensor.view.19, right? Actually, I can show you that in the thing. I think I have it in here. No, that's the index. Actually, I can show you this example too. I'll grab just this one because the example doesn't really matter. If I run this, right? This is just a what? Line 61. Think Python, what is it?
Addition.
Yeah, it's just addition. It's just a function, right? Sum is a function. Mean is a function.
Yeah.
So these are just functions, right? Souped up functions using tensors as opposed to normal vanilla Python.
Yeah.
Right, and that's all that is. So if I actually run this, oh, sorry. There we go. Let me comment this out. So if I actually run this, I'm actually going to get, it's going to take a minute, right? The actual output, right? Total being 10, the mean being 2.5, right? Just optimized calculations, right? Again, simple arithmetic there, right? But you can do it for like listing everything, all the numbers out in a list, right? You can add, you can multiply, you can slice. What do you notice about these? About these tensor manipulation tools? They're just what?
Oh, well, they're just functions themselves.
Yeah.
You know.
Souped up functions to work on matrices.
Yeah.
to optimize calculations. That's it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Tensor methods. PyTorch provides a wide range of tensor methods that are essential for building and optimizing neural networks. These methods include mathematical operations, aggregation, transformation function, built-in tensor methods. I showed you one already in some. These are just the equivalent of what in Python?
Just the equivalent of built-in functions with
That's it.
Python.
Give me the equivalent of line 61 in normal Python. Give me the equivalent of line 61 in normal Python if we weren't dealing with tensors.
You can do I think the sum is isn't that part of the math package? Or math
No, it's just so common that it's not even a package. It's built into Python. It's just sum,
oh yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah, but it doesn't sum just work on numbers though? Or does it work on it? Yeah, it's got to be a integer or float or
We're only dealing with what data type with tensors?
list.
Just integers,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
They're exactly the same, are they not?
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is you're dealing with matrices and not just normal lists, right? That's it. Not really anything different. And you nailed it when you say, hey, these tensor methods are just built-in methods. That's all they are. Look, they even look the same, right? Size, shape, sum, right? Unsqueeze. Unsqueeze kind of sounds like what?
Freshly
In,
squeezed.
no, this is kind of sounding like what in normal Python?
Unsqueezed.
What's the Python version of this?
I can't think of it right off the top.
Anyone?
Of my head.
What is this doing? How about this? Just read this. This is adding an extra dimension at position 0. How do we add to nums? How do we add one at position 0? How do we add a number? How do we add the number 10 at position 0?
Number 10 at
No, a pen's gonna add it to the.
you do push, right?
Is it push?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is that right? That can't be right.
Is it push? Or is that JavaScript I'm thinking about?
It's
Oh,
JavaScript.
Isn't it add then?
Add?
Yeah, try add.
You struggling here. Guys, did we forget our Python already? It's not add.
Oh, well, I think Adam was right then. Append, I guess.
Now the add it to the end, we're adding it to index 0.
Oh,
So
you're
we're
adding it to
prepending it.
index okay. You're adding it to index 0. I don't remember.
Is it insert?
Insert. Slice.
No. But if you notice for tensors, there was a slice function. I'll go ahead and point out in just a second. Is it insert? It takes 2 arguments. So you can add 10 at what index 0 maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Does that work?
There you go.
What did it do?
It added it at the end.
It's the other way around.
There you go. Hey, insert at index 0 and number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Bamskis. I forgot all about insert.
That's exactly the same thing here, right? Yes?
Okay. Yep.
Cool. All right. So now we're just, instead of just manipulating normal Python list, we're manipulating big matrices, right? Whether it's a 3x1, 3x2, 3x3, 4x4. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of different kinds of matrices, right? You think of rows and columns. Rows first, columns second. Okay? Keep that in mind. Revel, flatten a tensor, right? What is this going to do?
Flatten.
What does that mean?
Make it immutable?
No. If you have
Flat.
a list of lists,
Oh, so it's going to make one list out of it's going to make one list. It's going to combine all the lists together into one list.
correct, right? That's it, right? And anyone, this is kind of a harder one, but anyone know the Python equivalent of this?
It is. I forget. Let's see.
You can just use sublist in list comprehension, although I think there's a flattened list, right?
Yeah.
Yep. There is also a flattened built in, right? So you can use that as well. Reshape the tensor, right? This is just going to do what?
It's going to. Huh. That's a good question.
Let's do this one. Reshape tensor. Let's try this. Do we have, choose this one. And I'm actually going to delete this. Reshape tensor to a 1 and 4. Let's see if we can, is that 1, 2, 3, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's look at it. You're not familiar with these built-ins, that's totally fine. What did it do? Your comparison's on line 59.
Oh, it stripped the
It turned it into a 1x4 row.
Yeah.
1 row and 4 columns, right? Instead of a 2x2, which is line 59.
Right.
That's all it did. It sort of manipulated the matrix, right? Okay. Cool. And all these are just other examples. Here's your split. Split the tensor into chunks along dimension 0, and you're printing over the tensor, and you're printing every element. These are mathematical operations. We talked about sum and mean, aggregation function, right? This is very similar to the Python version of what?
Oh, would it reduce? Is that
No, don't overthink it. Just max, right, or min?
Oh, max. Okay, just
Yeah,
max.
that's all it is. It's like sum. They're identical, right? And this is transpose, right? This just flips columns and rows, right? So if you have like a 2x2, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Let's actually look at it. Let's try this. And we'll run it. What did it do? Your comparison's line 59 again.
Yeah, that made it a, what is that?
It's still a 2x2, but it did what?
It swapped the pairs.
Yeah, it swapped the rows and columns. Look at 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Right, and 2 and 4.
Right.
Just flip them. That's it.
Okay.
So that's transpose. Scenarios for tensor methods. What's happening here? Just broad overview. You don't have to be like super mathematician on it or anything. It's running basic what?
It looks like is it averaging it or creating
It's normalizing it, right? It's just taking the mean, right, and dividing it by a standard deviation. But it's just running arithmetic. That's how this is, right? On the vectors. Right. You don't have to be a math whiz. I just want you to know that I just want you to understand, right? That is just souped up Python under the hood. Right? Broadcasting. This feature allows you to perform operations on tensors of different shapes by automatically expanding their dimensions. This feature allows you to perform operations on tensors of different shapes. What does this mean?
Oh, so if you got a tensor that's created out of say 2 or 3 if you got tensors that's created out of different sizes, like one could be composed of 2 elements, another could be composed of 4 elements, the one with 2 elements, it'll make an extra 2 just to match up with the one that has 4 in it.
Yeah, it's how you're making computations on matrices of different sizes, right? How you end up multiplying a matrix that's 2 by 2 by 3 by 2, or 4 by 2 by 3 by 3. That's it. Conceptually, that's all you need to understand. Right? How you're able to run calculations, right? And come up with the next size matrix, even if the matrix is being multiplied or added or averaged, aren't the same size.
Gotcha.
All righty, conclusion. In this lecture, we introduced the concept of tensors and demonstrated their importance in neural networks. We covered basic tensor operations and manipulation techniques and essential tensor methods in PyTorch. Understanding these concepts is crucial for the efficiency of building and optimizing learning models. Keep experimenting with tensors as they are building blocks of neural networks and many other machine learning algorithms. Happy coding. The only thing that I really have for you on this lesson really is look at the Titanic assignment. Read through it. You don't have to work through it. We're not going to collect it, right? But that's like the quintessential like machine learning, training LLMs, right? Get your feet wet with neural networks kind of assignment, right? It's actually really famous, right? If you mention you worked through it, people are going to know what it is. Make sense? Right. You can actually even find like I think people have written Medium articles on it. I think there's a GitHub repo floating around of someone that's really proud of their solution. His statistical like model is like accurate within like a couple percent or something. They're predicting whether the person lived or died, and they're super proud of it. And they'll show you how to do it as well if you care to look into it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let me stop the recording right there. Give me how's everyone doing with their API deployment to EC2? First of all, did everyone actually do it the first time and get it to work? Because this should be at the very least the second time you're trying it. Got 1 no. Cisco, I think you got it.
I did not.
Okay, 2 no. Nicole? No worries. No worries, Nicole. You can chime in when you can. No worries if you couldn't get it the first time. The reason I was very adamant about trying to get it deployed the second time is because I knew that some of you didn't get it deployed the first time, and that's totally fine. But I actually think this is really important. Understanding EC2, the 2 biggest services on AWS are actually S3 and EC2. Those are kind of like what they call tier 0 services, right? By far the most popular, the most important things that everyone uses, right? So understanding at the very least to start off with, and there's Jesus, 100 and I should know this, 130 something services. I can't think off the top of my head right now. Right. But a lot of those are esoteric services not everybody uses. Right. But S3 and EC2 are two that everyone uses. So it would behoove you to become familiar with them. And again, if the company you end up working for, uses Oracle Cloud or Azure or GCP, Google Cloud, doesn't really matter. They have flavors of the same concept, right? All right, so definitely try to get it deployed this time. I think is really, really important, especially if you have extra time on your hands. Last thing that I want to actually touch on is personal project ideas. Where are we with those?
Solid ideas. I think I want to start.
Okay. After you have your idea, what's the next thing you should be working on? Anyone know?
Schema.
No. APIs. You're going to need at the very least 2 third-party APIs to use. That's, I think, one of the requirements. Might be even 3. No, I think it's 2. But I would definitely find those. Again, I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. A lot of the times people can't build what they want to build because they can't find the API. Happens all the time. After that, you can build what out? If you have your APIs, you can build out your API, you can build out your database, right? You don't necessarily have to containerize it right now. You will eventually. But right now you could just run it locally, right? And you could even throw a simple HTML front end until you learn React and then throw the front end on top, right? Replace the little simple, HTML, CSS front end, right? Slap the front end on top, right? And then to containerize all of it and deploy it, right? So keep that in mind. Do not underestimate how long it's going to take you, right? To not only think of your idea, but grab the APIs that you're going to need, right? Build out your entire backend. All that stuff actually takes quite a bit of time. Make sense? And up to this point, it will be the biggest application that you have built. So it starts to get kind of a little bit unwieldy, especially when you're new, right? Because you have a lot more files than you've ever had before. Go ahead, Art.
I'm assuming this is like more like a pass-fail type thing, right? Because like you can make it extravagant, but you don't get any extra points for extravagant as long as you check all the boxes, right?
Exactly. That's the case for all the assessments.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at some previous personal projects, and one of them, this guy built like this thing for a dog park, and very basic, but it checked all the boxes.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, I think I would rather really get the back end dialed in and not spend so much time make it all pretty on the front.
For sure. You can do that and then just iterate if you have time, right? What people really find out is they never have time at the end. Happens all the time. Any questions about that? About anything we discussed, either deployment to EC2 or the personal project stuff? The last thing that I wanted to talk about is those 2 links that I dropped in the hotel evening and weekend questions. Those 2 are probably 2 of the most popular articles on AI that have come out in the last year and a half or so. And if you read them, one of them is very short, one of them is very long. One of them is a more reserved approach or belief about where AI is going, and the other one is almost reads like sci-fi. The AI 2027 one almost reads like sci-fi, right? 2 articles, both written by incredibly smart people, completely different takes on what they believe AI will become. Definitely take a look if you're bored one day or you can't sleep and you pull out your phone. Give them a read. They're pretty interesting. You don't necessarily have to read the entirety of AI 2027. If you just read like the first main section, they'll give you kind of idea of what they're discussing. The whole article is incredibly long. It might take you a couple hours to read it all. So you don't necessarily have to do that. But if you just read the first section of AI 2027 and the $600 billion question, that one's literally a couple of minute read, not very long at all. You'll start to kind of understand kind of what I've been describing, right? There's definitely two sides to this coin, and they're very, very different. I don't think they share a lot of similarities on their belief of where AI is going. And I think if you read at least the first section of AI 2027 and all of $600 billion question, you'll get to understand kind of what I'm saying. How is it that, you know, two groups of people that are both very bright think completely different things are going to happen? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But I know that someone's probably, you know, when you're a kid and people say, oh, you know, sometimes, you know, the truth is relative, you know, maybe it's part of you know, there's two sides to every story, you know, maybe there's some truth here, there's some truth there. You remember that? You know, as I grow older, I found out that that's actually wrong. Someone's typically mostly right, and the other person is actually mostly wrong. So that's actually not true. I had a lot of bad teachers as a kid, and they taught me stuff like that, right? They taught me stuff like do what you love. They didn't tell me that I was going to have to take care of my parents when I was older, so I would have to make a lot of money. They didn't tell me that part. And here we are, right? Anyway, this is not about me. That's all I have for you guys. I'll post this recording right after this. So if you didn't get a chance to catch up on our resume coaches at the beginning, you'll have the video probably the next 20 minutes. Yes? Have a wonderful day, guys.